Namaskar. A very good morning to everyone. I, Dr. Ruchi Singh Tanwar, welcome you all on behalf of Ministry of Tourism and Tourist Guide Federation of India in a very wonderful, interesting ninth episode of Dekho Apna Desh. We are celebrating Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. It is an initiative of the Government of India to celebrate and commemorate 75 years of progressive India and the glorious history of its people, culture, and achievements. So, this is the ninth episode, and we have come up with a topic which is very close to our hearts. And today, we are having a very eminent speaker among us. The presenter is Mr. Syed Wali Khalid. I'd like to give a brief introduction of him. But before that, I would like to stress that culture, art, and craft is the face of every community, culture, and country, which attracts a lot of people to know more, to explore more. And today, being the eminent speaker, he would be stressing on and he would be enlightening us on the cultural experiences through craft traditions of Rajasthan. Now, let me introduce you to the speaker, the presenter. He is Mr. Syed Wali Khalid, Senior Research Fellow at Jamia Millia Islamia University. He is a regional level guy. And let me add to this that these episodes, the 75 episodes, an initiative of Ministry of Tourism, are totally dedicated towards the regional level guides who would be explaining on different nuances, different attractions of the glorious India, incredible India. They would be highlighting about various attractions, various diversities to attract people from all over the world to know more about our incredible India. So Syed Wali Khalid is not only a research fellow, he is also an entrepreneur, traveler, academician. He is a management professional with over 23 years of tourism industry experience, working at senior management levels with regional, national, and multinational companies. He is closely associated with the cause of tourism in Rajasthan and has earlier served in the capacity of secretary with the Rajasthan chapter of Association of Domestic Tour Operators of India. He has been championing the cause of the rural and craft communities of India. Khalid has designed, developed, and delivered experiential travel programs for national and international travel companies for their Indian and foreign tourists. Khalid, as I told you that he is into research, he is, through his PhD doctoral research, is making an effort to make travel open up as an inclusive activity for all. He's a firm believer that disability and old age is a form of diversity and should never be the reason to be excluded from the enjoyment of what the life gives us as a right. So, Khalid, we wish you all the best for your research journey. And now I welcome you for your deliberation. Thank you so much. Khalid, you're welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Ruchi Singh, for your kind words, and thank you, Ministry of Tourism, for offering me this opportunity. Thank you, TGFI, for selecting me to present the topic today. Good morning, friends. It's a great pleasure of mine to be amongst you and present a case for Rajasthan as it offers cultural experiences through its craft traditions. Uh, our discussion will be in two parts. Firstly, we shall be trying to understand our own challenging changing travel behavior mediated with our life-changing post-COVID pandemic times, which we definitely are so much impinged by it, impacted by it, and how Rajasthan fits just fine to offer the reason for a meaningful and exciting experience in our present times. And secondly, I shall present to you some of the beautiful craft traditions which have the great potential to offer participative, hands-on, immersive experiences to the travelers when they partake in making of these craft themselves when they visit Rajasthan. It also gives me immense pleasure to state that as an Indian, I'm very passionate about my state, my people, and certainly about my country. Thus, after traveling and showcasing the culture of my land, I have tried to pen down some of my understanding about the living craft traditions of two absolutely gorgeous, beautiful states of India, Rajasthan and Gujarat. And I have tried, along with my friend, to put in a book what my understanding is, and it would come out soon with your blessings, probably the next month, I believe it might hit the stands. So the presentation of today is just an extension of my book and my understanding of the living craft traditions of Rajasthan. Uh, right, ladies and gentlemen, Rajasthan, as you know, all is a land of colors, crafts, and chivalry. The land is steeped in culture. It is absolute, veritable treasure trove of fabulous living craft traditions of India. It is a land which is in some part extremely desolate, just because it's a desert. It is very unremitting. It's very harsh. Yet the numerous craft communities which inhabit it have filled it with their soul-stirring, colorful, utilitarian craft cultures. So that is the verb which has seeped into Rajasthan and its culture. So that is the color of the people, Rajasthan. Like all other places, the culture and the cultural tourism of Rajasthan can be seen to have evolved in three distinct phases based on the travel behavior of the visitors. Uh, Research done by Italian scientists Pierre Sacco and others in 2018 has also shown that there has been a shift in production and consumption of culture, and as a corollary for cultural tourism. Like all other places, it has also moved in this Rajasthan. The tourism, cultural tourism has moved from the phase one, which actually is a phase wherein the wealthy people not only make, create, and showcase the culture by the wealthy elites, but we have now moved into the postmodern phase, that is the version 3.0, that as it is called, in the phase of the cultural revolution, wherein the travelers now, actually the travelers are they do not watch from afar, but they participate in the experience. Now they are the creators of their own experiences, and Rajasthan, with its living craft tradition, just fits well as the finest place for such an immersive experience, as these are being created at any of the, these are the craft traditions are very ubiquitous. So you might find them at the lanes, the bylanes of any town, a Mufasil village or a city of Rajasthan. So Rajasthan is absolutely ready for its post-modern cultural tourist version 3.0. Uh, Ladies and gentlemen, as you all know, we are into the new normal, which has hastened our evolution into the experiential traveler. Why I say so? Because as post COVID times, now we as people, we are seeking personalized, meaningful, personal growth with deeper connection with our own self, the nature, the places, and the people. So, and that is what the search for meaning for our lives, and for that is where you start connecting with the places and the people. So that is actually the postmodern cultural tourism is all about. The demand for immersive, emotionally rich experiences is growing, and in-person interaction with the local communities and the real human connections are gaining in momentum. Rajasthan offers to the postmodern cultural tourists the experiences that are more integrated in local culture and creativity. These include street markets, street food, street art, craft community interactions, community festival, etc., etc. And At the same time, there are these experienced seasoned tourists who desire perspective shifting itineraries and challenge the status quo that inspires them on a deeper level, that also foster global citizenship concept in them. And of course, it comprises development qualities that encourage personal transformation, that finally offers a chance to construct their own identities. So as you can understand, Rajasthan, with its tourism, has the hallmark of all these, and through its craft tradition and communities, it has increasingly been understood. It serves as a catalyst for deeper connection with the self, nature, and places. Well, now we move to the next section, wherein I shall present to you, this is the second section, I shall present to you some of the beautiful craft traditions which have great potential to offer a participative, hands-on, immersive experiences to the travelers when they partake in making of these craft themselves when they visit Rajasthan. But before doing that, let's just wait for a moment and behold the pot that shows itself in front of us. Well, it is just a large Indus pot from the Indus Valley civilization somewhere in, it belongs to the period of 2600 to 2000 BC, from Chanudaro, which is now in Pakistan, Sindh. We see this due to the courtesy of the Expedition of American School of Indic and Iranian Studies and the Museum of Fine Art, Boston. Now, that pot that you see in front of you at the background would give us an understanding of the craft tradition of our own land. Like all Indian places, craft traditions of Rajasthan too are the patterns of the beliefs and customs of the inhabitants. It is the connection of the past to the future given to us in the present. It is this reflection of the natives' lives. If you know the characteristics of a craft, you'll be in position to understand the lives of the people and the land. Now, amongst the unique characteristics of our traditional crafts, in that there runs a common thread of unending line of continuity. And what we see today has always been in existence since time immemorial. Now, like this pot at the background that you can see has been there. The craft has been there for thousands of years. Now, it has been with us ever since the history has been written. But that does not mean that the land is stuck in the ancient part. It's just not the part that we are talking about from the ancient time. It is also in the modern times. Many things must have changed here. So, which means to say that here the ancient beautifully coexists and thrives with modernity. Now, thus the culture phases, like what we call as phase one of the culture to this phase two to the third, all of them are they coexist at a single particular time. The next characteristic of our crafts is that there is a duality of existence, which means at a single point of time, the aesthetics meets the utility. It is a beautiful, now the craft that you can see, it is a beautiful piece of art, and as such, it also has a utilitarian value. It is, and just because it has got some utility, it is an important aspect or an artifact to serve us in our as a necessity in our daily life. So the third aspect that we can talk about the crafts, the characteristics of a craft is that it is a unique human imprint, and it shows up with little marks of imperfection because these are all handcrafted, therefore never the same. And these are actually the beauty of the diversity that it forms. It is a non-uniform diversity, and that is the beauty of the crafts. It is all the human element which is in it. You would not find the beautiful crafts, the beauty coming out when you see from a machine made, but when you see a little imperfection, you can very well appreciate the human spirit behind it. The makers also need to have diverse knowledge. This is another aspect unlike the machine wherein the whole processes are divided into various processes, and each process has a particular person operating it. Monotonous becomes. But however, in a craft, the makers, they need to have diverse knowledge. They do not own a single process, they own the entirety of the processes. So they need to have the diverse knowledge and the skills, and can never be one of these section specialists. They are the master of all the processes. So they need to have the knowledge of the numerous materials involved, and the different tools, the procedures and techniques required to make the piece painstakingly over long periods of time. So patience, my dear friends, patience is one of the hallmark of the crafts that are being made in India and across the world too. These knowledge of skill and the processes are handed down from generation, a single generation to the next and next and next, and thus it becomes a living tradition. These are inherited and become the code of the daily life for families involved. These then get crystallized into the castes and subcastes, trades, and thus are also labeled as the social trait and identities of that community or the family that belongs to that community. So these community-based crafts become the basis of our social exchanges, and thus in the past made these social units closely independent from the outside world. They were a closed unit, so they used to be depending on each other in the whole unit, but from the outside world, they didn't have to do much. So the perfection of the craft family or a community then often took on the stage, wherein the association of emotion and pride was it was associated with the craft, and thus the family used to cling along to the community of their own. So that entrenched the caste system, and it also helped the whole division of labor. Now, while we talk about the crafts, there are a great number of craft traditions still existing. Anecdotal accounts suggest the numbers of the crafts extant today, ranging from between 90 to 150, and some even say 200. But we have not done I personally have not done the research for that, but we can just go by the anecdotal figures. So, but one thing that has to be taken note of is that each craft has grown in a place and made itself the brand of that place and its people. We shall talk about a few as an introduction to the ones which you can easily partake in its creation. Now, I would be showcasing some of the crafts, but these crafts are actually not representing the whole, but these are personal choices from mine, because they also give an offer. They also offer a possibility, an opportunity for all of us to get involved. So that is where we can experience the making of it, the creation of it. The While doing so, we also start creating our own identities. We are trying to make sense of our own living and being. So that is where the experiences, I for one believe that these craft would represent that kind of a spirit. So thus, of course, we cannot just talk about the entire 200 such crafts. So, but these, of course, we have the constraint of the session. So in fact, each craft that Rajasthan can offer is actually, what I have chosen is amenable to the immersive creative experiences. When you come to Rajasthan or Jaipur, you may well find some of other crafts that may interest you as per your personal hobby. You can choose from many of the crafts that you can see. The pottery, there are different division of crafts, from the pottery to wood craft, the paper, the hand woven crafts, the carpet, the rug, the stone carving, lacternary. There are lots of them. And however, we should be restricting ourselves to some of these which are shown onto your screen. In the pottery and terracotta, we would be having the mulela, the kagzi, and the blue pottery, Ustha Art, the wooden craft, jewelry, block prints, and tie and dye. These I would be talking a little in detail. So So we start with the most popular craft of the of our land, which is called the Molala clay tablets. It is very unique and interesting. Molila is a place, small nondescript village in Rajasthan, the district of Rajasthan, situated on the banks of the river Banas. Normally, anyone would pass off it as an ordinary village, with thousands of you passing by, traversing the rural landscape. But the distinction lies in the terracotta plaques made at this place. These plaques are flat surface, unlike the usual idols made elsewhere. This craft is unique in design. This craft has existed since a generation, and caters to the tribals who travel from as far as Madhya Pradesh to buy them every year. Once a year, in the month of February or March, the tribals buy these brightly painted terracotta planks from these potters. Usually a priest accompanies them for this ritual of buying. The most important figures are the Devanarayan, or the popularly, locally, he is called as Dharam Raja or Devanarayan, and Nagaraja is the second god, the snake god. The tribals prefer bright colors for gods, and there are specific colors to depict each of the god. For instance, blue is used for Kaladev and orange is used for the Goradev. The tribals usually change these votives, the decorative votives, the religious votives every year. These are, at times it is also votive offerings as well with them. So these rituals are believed to prevent misfortune. They consider these as gods and as their protectors. There is a legend behind this unique craft. Very interesting. Every craft has its own legend. We'll see. I'll be able to try and tell some legends attached, popular legends attached to each of the crafts. Now, this craft that claims, the legend is that there was a blind potter who dreamt of God Dev Narayan. The god asked him one day in his dream to dig a clay at a particular place and make his image. The next morning, the blind potter got his vision back. His sight was restored. So he made the god's image to fulfill his promise. Thus, the future generation of his who came off from him took to this craft, and the traditional design is an actually image of the Dharmaraja on a horse. So this is the most popular motive that you would see in the Momolela plants. Recently, this craft has evolved to suit the times that we are in. There are new designs like that of a village life or a wedding procession. You can see a whole panorama of all those designs and activity, the daily life, every activity is being edged into these Molila tablets. So this ensures for them as a business throughout the year, and the craftsmen are adapting well to these requirements. So these planks are used as decorative elements in our homes. If you come to any place in, especially in Jaipur, you can find many of our homes having these decorative elements on our walls. So Molila clay is muddy in color. It is dug from the banks of Banas River, 2 kilometers away from Molila on Nathadwara Road. Each potter has its own spot for digging based on his previous experience. For the colors, the potter used natural stone and mineral colors. Palleva is the clay slab and makes different colors when mixed with other elements. For instance, silver is made with paleva and water. The reddish color is made from gerua as we call it. The red soil is added to the mixture as the binder, and they use a vegetable gum called varigun collected from the trees. For the shining, they apply lacquer. They do not use varnish. They use the lacquer, which is an organic coat, which is generally it is in the local parlance called the jahal. Varnish is never used because it is of not of an organic origin. so which is prohibited in for the use on the idols and the gods images. So varnish is not considered fit to be used. Only one family of the in that place makes the jal or the lacquer coat. Monila's clay is well suited for the design. Uh, the weather is conducive for this process in a period like this, like we have right now in winters, as the harsh summer causes cracks while drying the product. In the process, first, now it is very interesting to note that the dung from the donkey powder is spread on the ground. The slab is beaten with pindi, which is a mallet. While making this slab, the pindi is cleaned with the tool called the baldi. When this slab becomes almost 1.5 inches thick, a wooden tool called the patia is used for beating. After this, the approximate measurement are taken with the palm, and the surface is smoothened by the hand. Having cut the main shape, thick coils are made, flattened, and added to the main slab to make a shape. Thin coils are used for detailing. For instance, the making of a face or a pasting of the slab is done in such a way that it generates overall facial form. The square coils are used to make noses and other shapes. The jewelry is made of the tiny balls of clay. So the final product that comes out is after only drying in the sun, and these dried planks are often fixed in the kilns slowly. The fired product is painted with the natural bright colors. So you can see these are this is one of the craft that anyone who visits Rajasthan would be easily partaking in it. It's a beautiful craft. You can create on your own. So whilst you are in Rajasthan, or you want to go to, if you are going from Jaipur to Udaipur, you can make a halt, predestined hall, and then you can use your time to get into such kind of a craft making. Now, we move on to the very famous pottery, which is called the blue pottery. This is the cobalt blue glaze pottery of Jaipur, and it is an exquisite craft which was actually introduced in the 14th century from the Central Asia into, first it came into Delhi. However, it came into Jaipur in the 19th century when Maharaja Savai Ram Singh II sent his craftsmen to be trained in this craft. It was in 1866 the Maharaja set up the School of Art and Industry at the famous Kishan Pol Bazaar in Jaipur, and appointed Mr. Chodaman as the head of the blue pottery section. Many of the fountains that you see on the walls of the palaces of the Maharaja still show up the remnants of the blue tiles. Now, this derived and much influenced, this art is much influenced by the Turco-Persian blue tiles. It is also called as the blue pottery. Um, and these were used as veneer on the domes, and you can also find such blue pottery glazed tiles at some of the old establishments. If you visit Rajasthan, you might be able to see them on the domes, on the minarets, the walls of the palaces, the tombs and the mosques. The blue pottery has made its way into the pottery culture of Jaipur. The pottery craft is remarkable as it does not use clay. So this is very distinguishing feature of it. It is the only pottery which might not be using clay as its base material. The technology and the technique that it has borrowed is actually from the Chinese and Persian decorative art, largely in blue. Unlike the utilitarian nature of other Indian potteries, this is a luxe art piece. This is not meant for usually daily use, but actually it is used only for the mostly for adorning our own drawing rooms. It is very interesting to note that the local people also attach a legend to the origin of this craft. Maharaja Savai Ram Singh II, who ruled the state of Jaipur between 1835 and 1880, had once attended a kite flying competition and saw his royal kites being brought down by a team of two brothers from Achanera, a village which is very close to Agra. The duo revealed that they used to use a coat of the same blue-green glass on the strings which they used in making their pots. So much impressed, the Maharaja then asked the brothers to come and teach him, and his actually royal craftsperson these craft of theirs, which was later on called as the blue pottery. The blue pottery crafts person does settle in the what we call as the Mehraon ki Gali, Ganga Mehraon ki Gali, in the walled city of Jaipur. This is how Jaipur acquired its fabled blue pottery craft. The family and descendants of Churaman, who was the head of the blue pottery section at the school Savai Maharaja Ram Singh Ji established, they in fact his descendants monopolized and carried on the craft until 1947. So bereft of the royal patronage and high-end consumers, the fortunes of this craft dwindled and almost ended in the year 1952. It was not more anymore with us, and the school was shut down in 1952. However, in 1960, it was the famous freedom fighter, art lover, social worker, and politician Tamna Devi Chattopadhyay, who played an immense role in reviving the blue pottery craft along with other Indian handicrafts. And she initiated and supported many of the great institutions for arts and craft in India, apart from Rajasthan, especially in Jaipur. She sought help from the Maharani Shri Mati Gayatri Devi ji, who supported the initiative with the provision of, she gave the land, building and patronage to the new school, and it was called as the Savai Ram Singh Shilp Kala Mandir. So this created in fact it restored the lost craft culture. By 1952 it was shut, but it was revived. So she also roped in the famous muralist Kripal Singh Ji Shekhawat and made him the head of the school, which was which played a leading role in putting the craft on the world map. So these efforts brought in the much needed revival of the craft. The making of the blue pottery is a long, very, very long drawn affair and a very painstaking one. It uses bilor, which actually is the quartz. Bilor is the local name which is used. This bilor, the quartz stone, is grounded first and mixed along with the multani mitti. Multani mitti is actually the fuller's earth. And then it is mixed up with the katira gun, which is the gum, and the powdered glass. Then you also use the caustic base of sodium, then refined flour, the borax, the color oxide, kalmishora, and lot many other things. And once you form it, it is left overnight for at least 10 hours. So the dough that is made is cut into equal parts. It is put in the mold and shaken, and this is followed by the filling of the mold with the bajri, which is the gravels, and the ash, and it is pressed light. Once the dough takes the shape from the mold, it is kept to dry for a day or two. So the hardened structure is now polished later on to smoothen the edges with the base stone, and left to dry for a day or two again. Later it is again rubbed over, but with a mixture of dough, and it is watered several times, so that it becomes clear, and it is now smoothened. So after a while, the structure is now put on the potter's wheel, and a paste of cobalt blue admixture with the gum is painted to bring out the designs. Several other designs are made with the different brushes. On the patterns, metal oxide is smeared on it to bring out the colors. So you can understand now the brightness is actually because of the metal oxide, and simultaneously an admixture of the potassium nitrate, zinc oxide. These are all added and heated until it melts in a kiln. Soon after it cools down, it is ground and mixed in water and refined. So this the most of the cards having melt, the structure is cooled and reveals the wonderful semi-transparent form. Now, this scintillating traditional blue color on pottery comes about from the oxide of the cobalt, and the green from the oxide is the copper. Yellow comes from the cadmium oxide. So all of these are the oxide. One is the cobalt, the other is copper, and the third one is the cadmium, which gives the yellow color. So the pottery is present in time. It also in our times uses dark blue, brown, yellow colors. But for the centuries, the patterns were mostly of the Persian influence, and the present day designs include goddesses, geometric shapes, animals, and floral patterns. The usual articles that are in great demand from the blue pottery are the semi-transparent and opaque ashtrays, lamp bases, shades, flower pots, tiles, etc. This actually again is the traditional potters community, which we call as the Kumhars, especially the subcaste of the Kumavat and the Prajapat, and also the Muslim craft communities who were introduced. They're all kept engaged in the production of the blue pottery in Jaipur, even till to this day. There are three settlements around Jaipur. One is the Sangane, the Kot Javar, and the Nepta, which has kept the craft alive. So mostly now they are from the Muslim, the Kumhars, the Kumawats, the Raigas, and Berwa castes, which are engaged in this pottery. Um but if you need to see and experience and create it, you need to come to Jaipur and try your hand in it. So now we move on to the Kagzi pottery. Now, ladies and gentlemen, as you can see on your screen on the left hand side is a perforated pot from Lothal, a place in Gujarat. And again, it is from the Indus Valley civilization. Now, would you not be amazed that the same tradition of perforated pottery is still carried out in Rajasthan after so many, almost 4,000 years later? Uh, and this region, which has specialized in this kind of a tradition of pottery, what we call as the Kagzi pottery, is actually distinctive and beautiful, extremely skillful pottery, which comes from the district of Alwar, and it is undoubtedly a pottery of the oldest form still prevalent in Rajasthan. There are two forms of Kagzi pottery. The one we had seen is the perforated ones, and the other is the non-perforated one. The perforated one is used for straining liquids or the aeration for household of or the edible items. Now these are mostly used as the lampshades you can see on the screens. The non-perforated has a small mouth. It is double walled, therefore it cools, yet at the same time it reduces evaporation. The hallmark of this unglazed style of pottery is the paper-thin clay design, which requires great skill to perfect. As a result, the pottery is very light in weight and has very distinctive, elegant patterns, and are both functional and artistic. As I have told you earlier, there is a duality of it. There is an aesthetic aspect attached apart from the functionality of its daily use. When we are discussing the style of Kagzi pottery, much of the design can be connected back to the water carrying functions. I'm talking about the non-perforated ones and the demands of the local climate and environment. Rajasthani pottery, be it in Alwar or in Jaisalmer and Savai Madhopur, these are distinct places where you can find potteries of different nature. Rajasthan pottery was often designed with small mouths or opening, which indicates to the paramount importance of conserving water and preventing spillage in the dry, harsh, arid conditions of the desert land. So more practical features were added in the designs, including an ingenious double wall surface. Now this is very unique, double wall surface, ensuring that the air would circulate efficiently and thereby keeping the water cool for the longest possible time. Um, the pottery in the form is very highly polished, and so there are ones which are not polished, there are ones which are polished. So most of the daily use potteries we have are non-polished, but there are certain which are polished. They have strong and distinctive patterns, arabesque etched into the top layer, then the remaining area is decorated with the painted. uh, but however, there are only few skilled artists who are well versed in the art form. It requires highly skilled artisans with substantial patience to work with the very thin clay walls, and because there is another technique that is used, whereas the outline of the design is inside using a technique what we call as the sgraffito. It is an Italian term to denote the process of scraping the upper earthen surface, leaving the lower layers bare and visible. So while you come to Jaipur, most of the arts centers have moved on to Jaipur just because people do often make visit when they are here in the northern part of India. They come and they generally touch upon Jaipur. So most of the craft person also have established some of their presence in Jaipur. So while you come into Jaipur, you would be able to get some of these hands-on experiences to create them. Now we move to a very personal choice of mine. It is very unique, and it is one of my favorites. It is one of the very unique and extremely and interesting craft traditions, because this craft integrates three distinct craft forms into one. Uh, there is this wood crafting, there is the painting, and balladeering. Balladeering is actually the singing of the folk devotional songs by the community, what we call as them as bhopas. So you have three crafts in it. One is the storytelling by singing, then there is wood crafting, there is a whole panel and the whole shrine is made, and there is a painting which is done by the chitrakas. So what we can call it as is a portable shrine or a storytelling box, um, covered is its name. And it is amazing, either a way representing the age-old craft highly practiced by the group of Jangir Brahmins near Chittorgarh in Rajasthan. It is their way of expressing their devotion with the help of the images of the Bhakti saints, as well as the stories of Rama and Krishna in a very interesting way. So when you see these panels, when they open up, there is the whole narration happens on the images taken out from Mahabharata and Ramayana. So this traditionally, the whole wooden frame is made from the mango or semel or neem tree wood, with 10 to at the most 20 doors. So the more doors it has, the more complex it has, the more narration it has, the long time it takes. So these are also painted, and painted with natural dyes. Of course, everything here what we talk about in Rajasthan mostly generally always use the organic dyes, the natural dyes. Um, you can see here, cowards are kind of a wooden boxes specifically associated with the local communities. As I told you, the word is coward. Now, coward is the combination of skills involved from the carpentry of Sudhar, the community which is the carpenters. The painting comes from the Chitrakars. Now, in literal terms, the word coward can be related to either of the kavat or the kapat or the kivad, which means a door or a panel, and a half a door or something like that. Now, there are researchers who says that the term kivad as the door and the shrine consists of several panels that open up like the many doors, which we have seen it on the very first image. Now, these portable wooden temples contain multiple panels, with the panel which unfold outwards on the either side. both of the sides, to reveal a shrine in the center. A traditional cover made of mango or semel would typically be painted in bright yellow, red, green colors, with tendo showcasing Krishna's and Rama's stories. There are storytellers as and all are called as the Kavadiya Bhats. These recite stories in a very impressive manner to the listener. So there is a whole tradition of storytelling. This was the time when people didn't have televisions or Netflix with them. So this was when the Kavadiya Bhats used to roam around, goes to the judgmans and sing to them the devotional songs, open up the whole thing. It was a visual treat as well. And they used to go to the judgman, and the judgman would used to offer them all the grains and whatever he could sustain for. So that is how they used to go from one house to the other, from the local thakurs and the priests and the elite of the villages and around. So they used to go and get some sustenance out of singing the ballads. So the idea of displaying bhakti scenes and stories of Ramakrishna is in such a way that it became prominent during the era of bhakti movement. However, thinking of Kavod as a shrine supports an idea that the Kavod is not a depiction of the Hindu deities on wooden panels, but is tradition of bringing the pilgrim spots or the holy deity to the people or divinity, rather than going, this is where people who could not go to the far off lands and go to the pilgrimage spots, these were brought right into their homes. So this was a tradition, and it's a beautiful tradition. It is also not dwindling. So the whole tradition is somewhere around 400-year-old tradition of India. The shrine-like form of kavod is also attributed to a Brahmini Kundanabai from Varanasi, who seemingly made the first kavod and gifted them to the storytellers. Kundanabai collected half the earnings of the kavadiyas towards feeding of the cows. So this is, you can understand, the religiosity was also to help the domestic animals, especially the revered cow. The kavod has become an identity to all the communities that are connected to the process and the tradition. So the makers get the uniqueness as they are the only ones who make them. So it is their prerogative. Nobody can touch that. Their skill is with them. The storytellers get their professional identity as the Kavadiya Bhat, and from the very name of the Kavad, the term Bhat is derived from the caste of the Kavad traditional tellers. So the Kavadiya Bhat periodically brings the shrine to the patron's house to recite his genealogy. Also, this is one of the other aspect that they do, is they recite the entire genealogy, so that the patron has a history of he knows of it. And these are the Kavadiya Bhats sing praises of his ancestors. Story is perhaps the oldest form of communication known to humankind. It has a way of mesmerizing the listeners, bringing together in a way which can never be forgotten. Storytelling was always been a part of India's rich heritage, and Kavod is a part of that. The Kavadiya Bhats live around, if you want to have an audience of theirs, so you can go to Jodhpur, because they live around Jodhpur, Nagaur, Kishangarh districts of Rajasthan, and in Mewar, that is the home of this craft tradition. It is primarily used to tell family stories, including genealogies, as we had seen it. Covered the traditional story box from Rajasthan is absolute beautiful craft. One should get if you are interested in storytelling, you can get into that. If you are interested in painting, you can get into that. If you are very interested in wood crafting, then you can also get into. So three crafts rolled into one. Now going ahead, we move on to the another woodcraft, and which is beautiful. Not only woodcraft, it is done on many other surfaces. It is called the Ustha Art. So Bikaner is in the western most part of Rajasthan. It is the fifth largest city of Rajasthan, and founded by Maharaja Rao Bikaji in 1486. During the Mughal period, architecture flourished in Bikaner, and that sparked the arrival of the Usta artisan to perform design workshop on the famous, the fabled Anup Mahal, the Karan Mahal, and the Phool Mahal. If you have gone to Junagadh Fort, if you do want to visit Rajasthan and you have Bikaner on your list, when you go inside the Junagadh Fort, you can see the beautiful Anup Mahal and the Karan Mahal, the Phool Mahal. So these are embellished by the Ustha art. So the princes of the houses of Bikaner, as the Mughal generals, when they were posted in the northwestern frontiers, brought in the Central Asian craft and craftsmen to beautify their palaces, their residences, the monuments, the forts. So the Usta art derived from the Usta art is derived from the word Usta, or it is a shortened form from the Persian word Ustad, which means an expert. Ustad means a master, an expert of a particular art. And it is general term used to signify nakashi, the carving, the painting, and the Manoti forms of miniature. So two forms of miniature painting is in Nakashi and in Manoti forms, and is influenced by the Persian art that flourished in the late 16th and until to the mid 19th century in Bikaner in Rajasthan. The art form is kept alive by the generation of artists such as a very famous artist is Jamil Usta and his grandsons, renowned as Hishmaddin Usta, and who was decorated with national awards and comfort with the third highest civilian awards of Padma Shri. Now, modern instances of Arabic, Persian, and Urdu calligraphy on wooden photo frames, bottles, marbles, items of camel leather and lampshade and pouches for personal uses. These are all the bases wherein the Usta art is also featuring on it. And of course, many of the Havelis, if you go to the heritage hotels, many of the Havelis, the heritage palaces, they also have this Usta art ingrained in them, on the walls, on their ceilings. Um, as we have seen it, Usta art work is a multi-stage process that begins with the priming and the measurement. It is followed by delicately etching the designs on canvas, into which the colors are deposited. And then the further embossing involved is done through the paste prepared by the mixing of the pot clay powder, gum, jaggery, and shadar, which is all actually is ammonium chloride, to prepare a base on which the gold foils are laid. Then the canvases include walls, ceiling, as I told you, the glass, the wood, marble, as well as artifacts made of the camel leather. The unique gold embossing and magnificent painting from the heydays of the art form can be seen in the palaces and Haveli inside the Junagadh Fort. So what you see in the slide, they're all doing it for embellishing, embossing, and decorating the ceilings and other artifacts. Usta designs are first perfected on paper. Now you can see they do it on the paper first, and then they trace it on the surface using indigo or black gold powder. Traditionally, vegetable dyes, as in other crafts, the dyes are used. Though artists today often use more of the easily available pigments because it is not only cost effective, it is also easy to get from the market. Much of the contemporary resurgence of Usta can be seen in the decor items such as the clocks and mirrors. If you go to Bikaner, you would be able to get one of the souvenirs of the clocks and mirrors. And you can also get into one of the workshops where the Usta art is, you can take part in it. So coming again into one of the other crafts where you can have your hands on is the hand block making. The tradition of making hand printed textile is widely practiced in Rajasthan, as you all know, and is characterized by the use of imprints of geometric as well as stylized floral and animal forms. Thus, there are craft cultures that specialize in making blocks for block printing. So that is how the print on the textile that you see is actually done by the blocks. And Jaipur is known for its intricately designed wood hand blocks. The founder of the king city of Jaipur, Maharaja Savai Jai Singh, patronized block printing and the other support crafts. Thus, the handcrafted hand block making owes its existence largely to the royal patronage. Uh, Bhatkara community specialized in the craft of block making, for they not only had command over the craft, but had the experience and expertise of many generations. In the local language, Bhat refers to the block and Gar to the carver, and thus Bhatgar as a carpenter who specialized in block making. So this community came in from Multan, presently in Pakistan, under the patronage of Maharaja Savai Jai Singh, and they were settled in Sanganer around the 18th century. It became very famous, and it is actually mostly the Muslim community, and many of their families shifted from Bank during the partition when it happened in 1947, before the independence, and at the time of independence, in fact. Earlier, there were entire community practicing this craft, but today only a handful of families are into making of the blocks. There are other families coming in from the eastern side of India who come and settle down, and they are making the blocks, but yet the tradition is kept alive. So, but the sad part is the transfer of the skill from one generation to the other is not happening, as there are no longer, they do perceive this work to be monetarily gratifying, and they think that they cannot sustain on such a craft. So as a result, the traditional skill and craftsmanship is on a decline, and we are losing valuable information in the process. Uh, The hand block making communities follow specific techniques. The blocks made are of varying forms and nature. Some of these are called, there are different blocks for different functions. One of them is the rake. It is the lead block. The datta are the foreground filler blocks. The gada, the background block for the blotching. So the speciality of these blocks from Jaipur is the depth and intricacy of the carving, which allows a cleaner and which allows for the cleaner surface and a clearer and immaculate printing to be done on it. Also, a peculiar form of Jaipuri block is the number of air passages, or what we call as the pavansar. So that is the hallmark of Jaipuri blocks. Pavansar are the drill air passages through the blocks to ensure circulation of air in the block during the printing, thus preventing the fabric from lifting when the block is raised. So you must have ever wondered, when they are putting a huge block, why does not the cloth get stuck? It's just because of the pavansar, and that is the characteristics of the Jaipur blocks. Due to its innate strength, blocks made of shisham may last through 200 meters of printing, and they are therefore generally used for the outline of the rake blocks. And because of the high cost of the teak wood, it is gradually being replaced by the cheaper wood such as the roheda and bhujan. The carved rake or the outline block includes the minute details of the pattern, including the veins of the leaves and the individual petals. So that is called the rake. That come from the rake block. Earlier, the society promoted the model of self-sufficiency, as we had seen. One of the communities would support the other, and there would be a kind of a barter or an exchange, a social exchange between different communities, and they would have their own different trades adopted by them. Just as the chipas would do the printing work, the Nilgar would do the dyeing of the indigo, the Bhatkadas would make the famous hand blocks. So from these wood crafts, we now move to the jewelries. Many of our audiences would be very interested to know because Jaipur is one such place where the jewelry is very famous for. And now we take upon one of the finest crafts, what we call as the Meenakari. It is among the very famous handcrafted jewelry craft coming out of Rajasthan. It is known to captivate. You can see the bluish and colors, dazzling. It captivates with its alluring art and its design. It boasts of an ancient origin. distinctive enamel surface pieces are created in huge array of colors and design and can be worn with pride as eye-catching centerpieces to any modern and traditional outfit. Meenakari actually refers to enamel work done on any surface. The derivation of the word comes from Meena, meaning the enamel, and Kari comes from the craft, which means Kari is comes from the Sanskrit word kar, and which means hand. So from the handcrafted enameling. So Meenakari is handcrafted enameling. Essentially, it is the art of enameling. The origin of this ancient art can be traced from the land of Persia. It was here where the process of decorating metal objects by enameling first appeared centuries ago. The enamel colors used are metal oxide, uh, uh, metal oxide, and the different colors and design, the traditional designs in Meenakari jewelry were birds, animals such as peacocks, elephants, and of course they would have the stunning floral designs. The enameling technique found its way into India through the Mughals. But it was in Jaipur that the art of Meenakari is said to have really grown and been popularized. Raja Man Singh, the king of Amer, stationed as the Mughal general in the northwestern frontier, reportedly brought in the enamel artists from Lahore to Jaipur. Meenakari later was much sought amongst the royalty of Rajasthan and Mughals domain. Jaipur became the center of traditional Meenakari jewelry, craft work, and gems herb, and still retains the coveted position. The process of Meenakari is very pretty complex one, and a long and painstaking, as all the crafts that you can see, they're all painstaking, long drawn, and involves numerous highly skilled craftsmen to create the final piece of art. Amazingly, it is the same sequence of skilled craftsmen that produced the Meenakari jewelry centuries ago, which are still used today to produce a piece of the art in a dramatic form. The Meenakari or the enameling process starts with the nakash, or the traditional designer drawing the nakash or a naksh on or the design. Once the design is created, the sonar or the goldsmith picks up from here. He would have many specialists crafted for various stages. There would be a kalamkar, there are many Meenakar. Kalamkar would be an engraver. The Meenakar would be enamelist. Once the color is applied, the ghotna wala, polisher, goes and does the ghotna or the polishing of the product. This is followed by the jadiya, which does the act of jadna. Jadau is also one famous part of setting of stones in the jewelry. Um, the final craftsman in the complex process is the stringer, the patua, which applies the final finishing touches. It is very interesting to note that it was practiced in many centers in India, and each region specialized in its own variation. Uh, one popular one popular form is ek rang khula meena. Here, only the gold outlines are exposed and the single transparent color is used over the entire engraved area. Some feel that the Meenakari displays the best on the gold as it has the sheen, the highlights, the colors of the Meenakari optimally. So there are other different forms, which is the Panchrangi Meena, the Gulabi Meena. And of course, there are different forms, but Jaipur continues to be the primary region producing these beautiful Meenakari pieces and have been admired throughout India. These works reflect a highly skilled ancient technique that lovers of jewelry as well as Indian handcrafted products can day in. But however, one thing that we have to understand is Meenakari actually is not was supposed to be an art which has to be showcased, but it was kind of an art which was to support the jewelry, the gold jewelry and the silver jewelry. This was becoming the back or the base of it. But however, in times, it has grown and it has taken its own class because it's such a beautiful art on its own that it is also now worn and appreciated and taken into the trousseau of the bridegroom as well, brides and bridegrooms as well. Now from Meenakari, we move on to the other jewelry craft, which is called the Theva art. Theva is a word from local Rajasthani language, which literally means setting. Theva is an art of fusing 23 karat gold with the multicolored glasses, and actually glasses is the one which dazzle up and embellishes the gold. Theva comes from two words, and these are the local dialects that they have. They given it to the language of the jewelry. Is one is called the tharna, which means to hammer. So it is actually the hammering of the gold into thin foils, in small quantity of the metal. And vada, meaning, theva comes from tharna and vada. Now, vada it means the silver wire, which actually is the loop form, makes the resting foundation of the main piece, both being the most important aspect of the art. So Tharna and Vada makes the Theva art. Theva. So Theva is a special art of jewelry making, which of the embossing of the intricately worked out sheet gold on molten glasses. It evolved in the Pratapgarh district of Rajasthan, and it again dates back to the Mughal age. The process of Theva is actually using of the 23, traditionally been used the 23 karat gold with multicolored glasses. Theva, uh, the whole Theva piece is handcrafted over a period of at least a month by skilled artisan. It The motifs used on the jewelry, which shows the culture, heritage, and tales of romance and valor. The most of the Rajasthan, which depicts on it, are the traditional stories. Also, something like Dola Maru on the camel as well. You can see on the foils of gold on top of a glass, shining glass. So that is how the motifs are done. The process of making Theva work is detailed. It's very, very time consuming and intricate, taking up to months to complete each piece. It starts with the broken piece of terracotta, finely ground, mixed with chemicals and oil to produce a thick paste. The paste then is spread on wooden base as a 23 karat gold sheets of 40 gauge thickness set onto the mixture, and the freehand design is on it. So black paint spread over the gold shade that highlights the design, so becomes clearly visible for further detail work with the fine tools. The craftsman removes the excess gold, creating a design often based on the Hindu mythology or the Mughal court scenes, historical events, or with flora and fauna motifs. Uh, if you look at the origin, Nathuji Soni, who was the one who invented the process, and the secret of the craft has passed from him directly to the son, to his son, and thereafter to the generation that followed. And it remains firmly into the family, who call themselves as the Raj Sonis. So Nasu Singh Ji was the one who started it. So many of these members of the family have been awarded by the national and state government, and even the UNESCO award. Some of the finest examples of this unique form of decorative art are in the local museums collections of India and abroad. Rajasthani glass works of Pratapgarh are unique in both design and usage. Besides beautiful and traditional items such as the handicraft item, glass photo frames, trays, glass artware, glass jewelry boxes, lampshades, flower vases, crystal wine flasks, lots of other artifacts are done up through the Theva work. Now, Pratapgarh is renowned for its Theva work. So, whenever you try and come to Rajasthan and you are interested in one of these beautiful Theva work art form, you can lay your hands at Pratapgarh. Even if you go to close to Udaipur, you would also find those places. Of course, Jaipur happens to be the capital. Most of it happens in Jaipur too. But if you really want to get into the real art form, right from the originator's family, you need to go to Pratapgarh for that. Now from here we move on to the block printing. The block printing, in the first we have the Akola hand block printing. And it is called Akola, and also it is also called as Dabu or Dabu print. It distinguishes itself in the forming of as it uses mud to resist the printing. Some part of it is printed, the other which has got the mud on it is resisted, and thus it does not have the paint coming in onto the textile. So that is how the mud resist style of painting is done. It is derived from the local word dabna. Dabu comes from the local word dabna, which is to mean that to press. So dabu in the printing process is actually the mud resist clay paste on the indigo dyed material, which is the unique and distinguishing technique of the art. The town of Akola, which is in the district of Chittorgarh in the southern Rajasthan, is a place of origin of this block print craft. The craft almost died out a century back owing to its very laborious process of fabric printing. However, it was derived and revived in the late 70s, and ever since it has been very, very popular now. Now, most of our online shops do have dabu prints on the skirts, the kurtis, and lot many things. It's become very popular now. But however, the oral tradition attribute the origin of the craft to this serendipitous event. It's a chance discovery. It just didn't come off somebody's uh, you know like somebody thought and planned it. It just was a chance discovery. So it was believed that almost 1200 years back, a dyer who had gone to wash clothes in the river had a lump of river clay stinging, clutching to his dhoti, which is his lower garment. And unknowingly, the cloth was tossed into indigo dye cauldron, and later when it was washed with water, surprisingly it didn't get dyed. So that is how it was found out that this can be done. So thus the mud was used. So the original color of the fabric which lay hidden under the lump of the clay remained intact. So now what if you have to not dye and keep the original color intact, what you do is you put your mud on it and then dye the other part of the cloth. So this gave an idea to the dyer to use clay of the river, to use it as a resist against dyes and preserve the original color of the fabric with some great patterns. Some centuries later, the rulers of the ancient uh, am I audible? Are you able to see the?
Yes, Mr.
Yeah.
Khalid.
Yeah.
Yes, we are able to hear you.
So so it was so this gave an idea to the dyer to use clay of the river, to use it as resist against the dyes and preserve the original color of the fabric with some great patterns. Some centuries later, the rulers of the ancient state of Mewar patronized the art and had settled the community of Chipas, and who were very adept in dabu printing along with the river Bedach. So descendants of those Chipas now carry on the craft to this very day. Now, deeply associated with the earth, the craft still is in its original elements and retains its strong cultural identities. The motifs, like the most of the crafts of the land, owe their inspiration to the natural surroundings. The popular motifs employed are the kantedar, which is actually the thorny, the lal titri, the red partridge, the butterfly, the kama and dholika. So traditionally, the prints were usually done on the fatia. What we now we don't use that word, but it was actually the traditional skirts and the lugda. The lugda is the head covers used by the women of the pastoral and the nomadic communities of Jat, Gujar, and Godaria. However, in the present day, dabu printing is growing popular among the modern day city dwellers. Amongst them is the teens and the women. Akula dabu printing is now done on kurtis, saris, skirts, apart from other apparels and furnishing. The fabric has also gone and upgrade with the use, instead of the cotton, now they are also using the silk, the muslin, the chiffon, the crepe, and the georgette. So, the years of experience of the crafter uh, translate in the finest of the Rajasthani traditional patterns, repeating the application of the dabu many times, which of course, now you have one single dabu, there are multiple dabu, times they do it, so which leads to double dabu or the triple dabu patterns. So the main process though involves an elaborate system of steps with overlapping of works carried on by various communities. From here, we move on to the next, which is the Babru block printing, which is again a very fascinating and very popular. This is Now, let me just recount you one of the legends attached to the Babru printing. Now, this is actually, there is an unsigned frame of Planck in the hereditary mansion of the ex-ruler of Babru, which narrates the origin of the nomenclature of Babru and the political clout of one of the Thakurs of that time. The noble man, the Thakur as we locally call them, of Babru, enjoyed an enormous trust of the Maharaja of Jaipur. He would sit on the left-hand side of the Maharaja in the court, and he was one of the 12 Kotharis of the state. So by way of his hereditary right and tracing descent from Maharaja Prithviraj, he would be in charge of the Jaipur and its palaces and perform royal ceremonies. So this is how his importance is shown in the plank, which is hung in the mansion of the ex-rulers of Babru. So the displays the Thakur with the title of Adhiraj. So the town derived its name from the island called the Bagora, and that is the plaque tells us that the Bagura is in a lake on which the city was built, and it was much well known for its palm fans and chins. So this is what all it is seen in the plaque. So some 300 years ago, as per a legend, the Thakur brought two families from the village of Isarda and settled them in his dominion. With the Thakur's patronage and copious water flowing in the Sanjaria river of the land, Bagru soon attracted Muslim printers from Sanganer, apart from the Chipas from other places like Savai Madhopur, Sikar, Alwar, and Junjunu. So it is somewhere around 300 years back, or 400 now approximately. It is believed that the nomadic tribes locally called as the Banjaras from the western town of Nagore would pass through the Bagru and leave their cloths with these chipas on their way to Dishawar. Now, still we find the people coming from Badme and going to the Madhya Pradesh. So similarly, if you can look at this, while on their way back to Nagore, the Banjaras would collect their clothes after being beautifully adorned with the hand block prints, so fit to be worn with pride the whole year. Now, this account suggests that Chipas of Babru would print the jajams, which is, and the jajam is a cloth thrown over the carpets. We know these terms and vocabularies, the words are not being used, but this is how it's all started. So since it was all jajam or the tents, it was also used in the First World War. The Maharaja of Jaipur also brought in the tents in the Europe to house the troops. So that was, in fact, the Bagru cloth. So it was a little thick handloom with large geometrical designs. So these were also used as the carpets and daris earlier in its original form. So so these were also festooned in the tents in the war and weddings as well. So you can see now the beautiful craft has metamorphosed into giving you beautiful apparels, but it's all started with the fetias or the jajams and the daris, so was only in 1975 with the focus that's it's got from the government of India, especially the government of Rajasthan, that it started getting its due. There was a modification done into the motif, the prints, adding more shades of the black and red color. In fact, earlier it was only black and red. So, but they started using other shades. So more varieties were often put in. So this helped it from the restricted craft to from bichonis to razais. Now it's expanded, it's done into the running material, the skirts, the kaftan. Now we are all exporting these to other countries with beautiful patterns, motifs, and colors now. So though the river has lots of perennially flowing water and moved almost a mile away from Bagru, yet the Chipas still use the banks and have dug up their own wells, have not let off the valued vitality of the forefathers in this traditional craft. So it has become a living tradition now still, the mud that is being used from the Sanjay, though it has moved on. So the technique of colors largely remain unchanged, making Bagru craft very, very specialized, unique, and distinct. So the printing process undergoes a series of steps traveling through the vertical lines of different craft communities, locally known as the Harada. Pila karna. If you go to Babru and you look at those workshops, you can see how they do the harda, which is also called the pila karna, just because pila is actually a word yellow, which gives a pillow the yellow color to once it is taken off. So and then you have the tapana, the chapai, the rangai. These are the other processes and the steps of the block markers before the block markers take up the cloth and put their blocks onto the cloth. So this is actually the washerman, the dyer, the maker, the pressman, everybody who chips in makes in the beautiful Babru print. So the Babru prints typically use the vegetable natural dyes, primarily Babru red and Babru black colors. Now, if this is also how you distinguish it from the Sanganeri block print. So whenever you come to Rajasthan and especially Jaipur, you would be finding these two distinctions. How do you distinguish it from Sanganeri? So just because of the colors and it is not that these are all bold, unlike the Sanganeri prints, which are a little refined. They have got a blue color as their basis. So Bagru is red, is sourced from the combining of alizarin with alum, resulting in the shades from pink to the extreme red. And then you have the rusted iron horseshoes, nails mixed with wood. So this is how the colors are done when the iron horseshoes are mixed with the jaggery, the molasses, and they are made to rot for at least 15 days. So you can see how detailed and how elaborate the whole process is when you have to start. They do it themselves, and it is the printers themselves make the whole colors. These are the organic. Even the mango tree bark, the pomegranate peels, the vinegar, slake lime, these are all natural sources that derive the colors for the Babru prints. Now, traditionally they were done on the reja cloth on the case. That is, today it has been done only on malmal, the reshams. So it has moved on. It has evolved. So the communities that are involved in the from generation in the block printing have largely been the Rangres, the Nilgaran, the Chipas. The Rangres are the dyers with the color derived from kusum flower, the Ceylon oak. The Nilgaran dyed with the indigo and the Chipa are the printers. So these could be the Hindu or Muslim communities jointly doing it. Even if you go to Babru today, you can see both of the communities involved into the dyeing and printing of the Babru hand block prints. Among the Hindu Chipa community, they traditionally had the Nabdev and the Jakar Matas and their deity of worship. Similarly, you have the Brahma Khatri and the who did the actually the tie, dye and print. The Bandhara community were the specialist pagdi turban dyers. The Chowda is the Muslim community which came from the Multan in Pakistan and did the tie. And similarly, some of them also went into the Gujarat state. So you can also see their derivation from Rajasthan also into Gujarat. Now we move on to the Bandani and the Leheriyas. The bandani is a type of tie and dye textile decorated by plucking the cloth with the fingernails into many tiny bindings that form the figurative design. The term bandani is derived from the Sanskrit word banda or the to tie. In Hindi we call as bandna, but it comes from the Sanskrit word banda. Today, most of the bandani making centers are situated in Rajasthan, Gujarat, Sindh, Punjab, and every style, every center has its own style, unique style. Uh, the most pervasive type of bandani dots can be seen in the 6th century paintings depicting the dots. Is also known as bandhej, bandhani, pilia, chungidi. We also have the techniques involved, which are called the mothara, the ekdali, the shikhari, depending on the manner in which the cloth is tied. So it is actually the tying is the primary essence. The final products are known with various names, including the kumbi, the gharchola, the patodi, and the chandrakhoni. The art of bandhani is a highly skilled process. The technique involves dyeing of a fabric which is tied tightly with a thread at several points, thus producing a variety of patterns like the Chandrakala, the Bhavan Bog, the Shikari, and etc. etc. Depending on the manner in which the cloth is tied. The main colors used in Bandani are yellow, red, blue, green, and black. The main colors used in Bandani are natural, as Bandani is a tie and dye process done by the hand. Hence, best colors and combination are possible in Bandanis. Um, the different colors convey different meanings. People believe that wearing red brings good luck to a newly wedded life. So most of the newlyweds would have a red adorned bandani, apparels on them. The history of bandani work is, started by the Khatri community of Gujarat. The term bandani is derived from the word bandhan, as we all know it. Some 5,000 years ago, the tie and dye or the bandhani was also started. Places like Rajasthan, Jaipur, in Rajasthan, like Jaipur, Sikar, Bhilwara, Udaipur, Bikaner, Ajmer are the centers where you can find bandhanis. Now, we now move to the Leheria. Leheria is a traditional style of tie and dye again, dye again, practiced in Rajasthan, India. That is, results in brightly colored cloth with distinctive patterns. The technique gets its name from Rajasthani word for wave, leher, wave, because the dyeing technique is often used to produce complex wave patterns. Now, if you move your eyes from top to the bottom, you can easily feel the waves moving in. So that is how the famous leheria, the zigzag pattern of irregular colors, stripes, is visually, it's a visual invocation of the flow of water, at the same time painstakingly showing the depths of indigo after multiple mud resistance and dyeing processes. No, so the blues in the leheria attract the eyes instinctively. So this is a very visual treat for anyone who is wearing it and anyone who is watching it. So leheria dyeing is done on a thin cloth, which could be of cotton or the silk, usually in lengths appropriate. Initially, it was for the turban. Now, the saris you can also see in leherias. The fabric is rolled diagonally from one corner to the opposite selvage and then tied at the required intervals and dyed. Now, wave patterns result from the fan-like folds made before dyeing. Now, this is how the waves can come out. You have tied it up where the places are tied. You do not have the dye seeping it, and thus it is leaving it in a diagonal fashion. So traditionally, leheria employs natural dyes and multiple washes and uses indigo or alizarin during the final stage of preparation. It is as popular as the state itself. No, the tie and dye fabric in Rajasthan are as old as 5,000. We have understood it earlier as well. And the work is available in different materials now, as the chiffon, georgette, satin are also used. There are various patterns of tie and dye, such as what we have seen earlier. Another very popular tie and dye or bandage is among the most preferred patterns of the cloths that we use, is getting much hit on the Amazon website or Flipkart. So this is a traditional living crafts now getting a foothold into the modern ladies wear as well. So with this, I end up my session, and thank you for your patience, for hearing it out. And if anybody would want to have my contact details, if you want some craft workshop, understanding, just support for any experiential travel or a community connect that you want, you are most welcome to connect me. So thank you so much for your time, and thank you TGFI, thank you Ministry of Tourism for giving me an opportunity to present my passion here. Thank you so much, Dr. Ruchi, for giving me the opportunity to talk. Thank you.
Wow, that was amazing, Mr. Khalid. We all were so spellbound with all those beautiful handcrafted articles that we almost forgot that we we ran out of the time. It was 1 hour session, but then it extended up to almost 1 hour 40 minutes.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, that was absolutely fine. And thank you so much for taking us all, for enriching us all through this visual art gallery of rich cultural heritage of our incredible India. And ladies and gentlemen, I would like to draw your attention that this was only the handcrafts or handicrafts of Rajasthan. And as you all are aware that Rajasthan is a land of diversity. So I, being a Rajasthani, I feel so proud. I possess some of these art and crafts. And India, all over India, every region has distinct characteristics. Every region, every state has their own unique these handicrafts products. So and earlier, these as we have seen through slides, that these all products, they these artisans, it is such a tedious hard work, and it takes several steps to come up with the finished product. So we all should appreciate that, and we all should, wherever we go, we should buy these local products, these handicrafts. And through our experiences, we have been in this industry for so many years, and we have seen that every guest of ours, especially the overseas guest, they want to come back to India again and again, because every region is offering something or other. Every region is offering a different experience, and these handicrafts form a part of our souvenir industry. So by buying these products, we support these artisans. In earlier days, in our history, we have seen that these artisans and these communities were patronized by the rulers. And nowadays, government patronized these. So we urge you all, we request you all to buy the handicrafts wherever you go. And I thank once again Mr. Khalid for such a nice presentation. And we look forward for more research through you or from other people who are in academics to research and present such beautiful presentations on different artifacts of India. So I thank you on behalf of Ministry of Tourism and TGFI. Thank you so much for such a wonderful session.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I think we should all leave the session now. Thank you so much, everyone.